After a dreadful plane crash, Piggy wakes up in a forest. Sore and confused, he puts on his glasses and starts searching the area. When he finds a fruit on the ground, he picks it up and licks it, but flipping it over reveals worms, so he drops it. Then he's startled by a pig running nearby. Eventually Piggy finds the wrecked plane, but he doesn't dare to approach it because there's a rotting animal body near it. He decides to instead get some fruit from a tree to feed himself. While enjoying the fruit, Piggy hears a noise and starts running, but he stops when he notices it's Ralph. The boys decide to stick together and keep exploring the area, only pausing when Piggy needs to rest because of his asthma. When they find a stream, Ralph immediately takes off his clothes and jumps into the water. He has lots of fun swimming and asks Piggy to join him, but Piggy says he can't swim because of his asthma. Ralph has known how to swim since he was 5 thanks to his Navy officer father and offers to teach Piggy, who explains that his parents are dead. Piggy only takes off his socks and shoes to hesitantly walk into the stream, so he and Ralph splash each other for fun. Afterward, Piggy finds a very big conch and breaks its pointy end, explaining that his aunt used to have one and blew it all the time to make noise. The boys reach the beach and Ralph blows the conch as loud as possible a couple of times, which helps a large group of boys find them. They all share some fruit before wondering what happened to the adults from the plane, since they haven't seen any. Their discussion is interrupted by Jack and his choir group. As Piggy invites them to their meeting, Simon suddenly collapses. Piggy warns them that their uniforms will make them boil in the sun, but Jack dismisses his worry because Simon is always fainting. The other choir boys are trying to move Simon, but Jack tells them to leave him on the sand. Then Jack tells Piggy he talks too much and calls him fatty before Ralph says they should choose a leader. Jack thinks he should be chief because he's the choir's head boy, but Ralph suggests they nominate several boys and let everyone vote. After Simon wakes up, the kids start voting. All the choir boys vote for Jack while the rest vote for Ralph, who wins by a landslide. Since Jack gets angry, Ralph tells him he can still be the leader of the choir, and Jack's mood improves when the choir boys decide they shall be the hunters. Desperate to know where they are, Simon, Jack, Ralph, and Piggy start making their way to the top of the mountain. Piggy struggles to keep up with the others because of his asthma, and Ralph encourages him to keep going. They end up arguing and Piggy reminds him that he wouldn't be chief without him. Eventually the boys find the dead pilot. Ralph wants to bury him, but Jack thinks the pilot made a mistake and he must take responsibility for it. Then Ralph proposes to give him a Navy burial at sea instead of a Christian one, which Jack finds more adequate. Piggy doesn't like the idea, but the others vote in favor, so they try to move the body. Since it's attached to a chair, it's too heavy for them to move, so the 3 boys decide to push it down the hill while ignoring Piggy's protests. The body brutally crashes and Simon says a short prayer. When the team comes back, they explain that they've looked at the whole area from the mountain. They're on an island with no way out and there are no houses around. The adult passengers are most likely dead. Everyone starts talking at the same time and Jack tries to leave with the choir boys to hunt, but Ralph makes them stay. Then Piggy comes up with a rule to stay organized. Nobody speaks unless they're holding the conch. Piggy says that they need to prioritize shelter, food, and toilets. Jack and the choir mock him, but the other kids agree with him. Then a young boy with a birthmark on his face shares that he saw a beast in the forest and thinks it'll come back tonight, but Ralph assures him there are no beasts around here. Everyone is tense, so Jack promises that if a beast shows up, the hunters will kill it. Ralph then starts assigning chores without taking the conch from Piggy. The boys spread and Piggy enters the woods to get sticks for a fire. Suddenly a piglet jumps out of a bush and Piggy decides to chase it. When the piglet is cornered against a tree, Jack comes out with a knife in hand, yet he hesitates. Piggy tells him to kill the animal, but Jack won't move and the piglet ends up running away. Jack blames Piggy for it and claims he'd only been waiting for a moment to choose where to stab it. When Piggy calls him a liar, Jack warns him that Ralph will eventually abandon him. Piggy promises not to tell anyone about what happened and Jack tries to spook him by mentioning the beast before he leaves. Afterward, Piggy continues gathering wood with the help of a pair of twins and Simon, who hears him singing and asks him to teach him the song. They end up singing together and Piggy even dances. Later, Ralph tells Piggy that he wants to be a good chief and asks for his real name, so Piggy tells him that he's Nicholas, but his family calls him Nicky. When they finally have enough wood, they want to start a big fire that could act as a signal, but they realize they don't have matches. Piggy points out that it's rotten wood so it's not useful, but they ignore him. They remember using glasses to burn ants, so they forcefully take Piggy's while ignoring his complaints again. Ralph hears him calling him for help, yet he still takes the glasses and points them at the wood until the sun starts a fire. The boys celebrate, however their mood drops when the fire begins spreading out of control. Piggy points out he was right about the rotten wood, yet Jack insists the fire is only getting bigger and it won't spread much more. Soon the flames reach the trees and the kids panic. Piggy tells them they have to chop down trees to build a fire break, but Ralph points out they have no tools. The group runs away as the fire keeps spreading and the burning trees begin falling off the cliff. Piggy tries to run as fast as he can, but his asthma causes him to slow down. He forces his body to keep moving and he ends up tripping and falling. His head hits a tree and he passes out. Seconds later, Piggy wakes up and manages to leave the forest. All the boys are at the beach watching the fire spread through the island. The younger boys have fallen asleep and won't wake up, So Piggy grabs the conch and starts blowing. It takes him a few tries, but eventually he manages to make a loud noise, which finally wakes the children up. At that moment, Ralph notices that the fire isn't reaching the other half of the island and concludes that the rocks are stopping it. Piggy starts counting heads and realizes that the boy with the birthmark is missing. Sometime later, Jack and Maurice are in the woods tracking some pauperets. While carefully sneaking around, Jack keeps thinking about his family and the day they put him on the plane. During the flight, he saw signs of potential danger, like the plane shaking, things falling, and a flight attendant looking very sick, yet he had told himself it was nothing. Suddenly the plane started to fall and all the boys were screaming, but Jack kept his stoic face. In the present, Jack tries to approach a pig, but Maurice steps on a branch and the noise sends the animal running. The boys run after it and throw spears. Unfortunately, the pig manages to escape and the duo has to go back to camp. On the beach, Piggy is telling stories to the little boys. Ralph is trying to build a shelter, but the sticks keep falling. When Jack mocks him for not building anything, Ralph mocks him back since the hunters haven't captured anything either. Despite their argument, they decide to race to sea and have some fun in the water together. Afterward, they rest on the sand and discuss the situation. Ralph mentions that the little ones are very frightened and they scream when they have nightmares. Simon joins them and says that the young kids sense there's something on the island. In fact, he thinks he felt it in the woods too. When he asks Jack if he didn't sense something following them while they were hunting, Jack denies it. Then Jack asks Ralph if he wants to join the hunters, but Ralph turns him down because he thinks the chief must stay in the camp with everyone. At that moment, Piggy approaches them and complains about the little ones not using the tidal pool for the toilet. However, Ralph tells him to save it for the meeting. Piggy thought this was a pre-meeting for the core leaders, but Jack denies it and leaves. Later, while gathering wood with his friends, Jack gets the feeling something is following him, but he doesn't comment on it. Suddenly he sees a glint in the distance and notices a piece of the plane stuck on a very high rock formation. He immediately starts climbing it and gets more nervous the higher he goes. When he almost slips, he says this is getting too dangerous and his friends agree he should come down. A terrified Jack tries to climb down, but he can't find a spot to place his feet. When he's about to panic, his friends rush to guide him and together they manage to return to the ground. Jack thanks them and asks them not to tell anyone. On top of the mountain, the hunters are taking care of the signal fire when they see a group of pigs on the grass in the distance. They realize that's where the pigs rest, so they plan to find a passage to that spot and attack them. Jack goes to the stream and starts covering his face with mud, hoping he can blend in during the hunt. Simon thinks Jack is having a good time here, so Jack clarifies he's just taking things seriously and shares some stories from his father, who went on a survival trip as a child. However, Simon thinks his and Jack's father won't search for them, so they can only hope that the other kids' humble families will. Jack swears he isn't afraid, just worried, so Simon takes pity on him and helps him paint his face. The next day, Jack makes a drawing in the sand representing the hunters killing a pig. Later, Piggy tries to tell the kids some things they have to improve to make surviving easier, but nobody takes him seriously. They talk over him or mock him. Ralph takes the conch and tries to calm everyone down, yet they don't respect him either. Then Jack takes his turn and tells everyone that they're crybabies. He's been all over the island and hasn't seen any beast, so he wants everyone to shut up and listen to Ralph. Next, a kid shares that he dreamed about fighting twisty things in the trees. When he woke up, he saw something big and horrid moving nearby. The others don't believe him and laugh at his story. Another young boy wants to say something too. However, since everyone keeps laughing and mocking each other, the poor boy can only cry. Jack talks to the kid in private and learns that he saw something in the sea. Later, the